I'm just in awe of the entire place. I mean, really. I mean, we're in the Millhouse, right? And you left me speechless earlier, which is hard to do for me because a lot of times I just get to gabbing. But as you were kind of taking me through everything in the house, I was just really kind of like set back as to how majestic this place actually is.
No, thank you.
And just the years that are on this place in this room are just not only fantastic and phenomenal, but magical years.
Yeah,
right?
well, it was interesting because my ex-wife was here the other day. So she came in and talked about a big life, because over at the tennis player, my God, cover of Newsweek, cover of Time magazine. She looks around, she goes, man, what a great story. I said, come on. I felt like she was like pimping on me, because you walk into her house, my God, it's good. But when you walk into a home, for the most part, if it's a home like this, you see a life surrounded by travel and adventure, putting things out there where you really try to do something, at a high level. And these are just a representation of a life of adventure.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a lot of people kind of get stuck. Yeah, they fish here and there. Like if you go to the Keys tarpon fishing, most people can only go for a week, a year. They have to save up the entire year to go for a week. But our lives, like your life, my life, like John's life, we live this life on the ocean.
Right.
And then we travel. We go to different parts of the world, and so we're lucky to have been able to figure out a way to make this all work,
right,
financially. Not that we make money from this, but money is it gives you options.
That to me, that's what that's why we Connected by Water speaks to that. Like that's why we named our company that and our show that, just because. There was never, like a Norman McLean opens up the book, there's no clear line between religion and fly fishing in our family. I'm paraphrasing that, obviously. But to me, it's the same thing with our art studio and our fishing life and our home life and our family life. There's no clear line in between it. Some people go to work and then they come home. And for our house, it never ends. Like, it's just one fluid thing,
We're fortunate.
Yeah, and there's a lot to be said for it, and sometimes in the beginning, learning how to navigate that can be tough. But it just eventually just becomes your life.
Yeah,
and just comes what you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you for opening up your home to
welcome.
me.
Look, why wouldn't I?
It's still an honor.
Yeah, it's we're sharing our stories. I'm glad you're here, and I love art. I love artists. I love the whole concept of putting an image on a wall like you're doing now, these murals. I mean, my gosh, what an opportunity to put something that comes from your mind and your hand in that kind of a form, on that kind of a stage. It's got to be crazy. Driving down the road, that's my work.
The murals are actually my favorite to do.
And why is that?
Because I get to interact with people during the work.
Okay.
And I think, to me, that brings a lot of meaning to it. Now, there's a lot to be said for sitting in your studio all day long and just having your solitary moments. But, being kind of a gregarious person, it's really cool when you have people stopping by, and then some of the same people will stop by throughout the weeks you're doing the mural, and they'll see the progress, and you make people happy. And that's a really, really good feeling.
Yeah. To
make people happy with your art, or to make people happy with anything you do. I'm sure if an accountant can say, I can make people happy, they'd enjoy their job a lot more than if they're not. Yeah. So I think that's probably why it's my favorite. And of course, seeing it really huge is freaking cool. But, let me formally introduce here the show. So it's the Connected by Water podcast at the Millhouse. So thank you again. We are a fueled by Papa's Pilar Rum, just like the Millhouse is. And we appreciate being a part of that family. I just want to mention one thing about Papa's Pilar, just congratulate them. It's the folks down at the distillery for winning that USA Today award for the best distillery tour in the nation. that was pretty cool.
Very
that they
cool.
got voted #1 for that. And they've been sponsoring our show for 5 years running, and we're just proud to be part of their family. And just a reminder, we are a Waypoint hosted podcast. You can find us there. You watch, listen, and do not forget to subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, and smash those like and subscribe buttons. And while you're at it, do the same thing for the Millhouse podcast, please. And I think that's obvious why. Before I introduce today's incredible guest formally, I'd like to announce this week's Starbright Solutions Project Sea Safe do-gooder, and I got it right here. It's actually 2 do-gooders. It's like a family of do-gooders, right? So Tyler and Carrie Sheely, they're doing some of the hard mangrove replanting work up there in the Indian River Lagoon, and they're teaching their kids with some hands-on experience to make a difference, which is so vitally important for our future generations. So thank you to the Sheely family and your kids for doing the good work up there. Congrats on being this week's Starbright Project Sea Safe Do-Gooders of the Week. So if you want to nominate a do-gooder in your area, just message us on Instagram. They could win a very special Starbright Solutions prize pack worth over $200. And always thank you to our sponsors, Papa's Pilar Rum, Starbright, Olakai, and Seaward Systems for their great support of our show. Today's guest. Let me see. We were just talking about your resume, right? In your, what do you call it? The fly tying room, the tackle room, or whatever. Yeah, your tackle room.
I'm just messing with you.
Let me see here. Former Olympic and world champion skier. I got notes here for Sportsman's Journal show host, former television sports show host for ESPN, NBC, and more. Super champion angler, that goes without saying. Writer, right? Current Millhouse podcast host, and multiple honors and inductees and trustees to your name, and just an all-around amazing icon of a sportsman, Andy Mill.
Oh, you're very generous. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to kind of start by something you and I talked a little bit about. I kind of briefly talked about this before when we spoke previous, but I was invited to go play golf one day at a certain golf course here locally that you're a member of. And I was just enamored to get invited to this really exclusive place. And I don't know if we could mention what the name of the place is.
Yeah, it's all good. It's Adios.
Adios,
yeah,
right?
Adios, man. What a great place.
So I walk in there and they're like, "Oh, please come with me, Mr. Friel. We have your locker set aside." I'm like, "What kind of place is this? This is great." And I'm just going over to my locker and I'm just looking at some of the names, like Dan Marino and and Anthony Rizzo and Alex Rodriguez and like all these guys. And I go right across from my locker, "Oh shit, Andy Mill."
Yeah.
Of course he's
How'd
here.
he get in
Of course
here?
he's here.
What's he doing with these names?
So I was like, "Man, this is great." So instantly right then and there, I set like a goal for my life. I'm like, "Man, look at that. Andy Mill's here." Like, all right, I'm going to set a goal. I'm going to be an Adios member one
I want to be a
member. Get my locker here.
No doubt.
Yeah, that place is awesome, though.
It's the best.
Yeah, for sure. A cool story also about Adios. My friend Elmer, right, who, if anyone watches our show, they know who Captain Elmer is. I fish with Elmer a lot he lives in Everglades City. And he's a good friend of the Harkabees. And he tells me a story of how you took the time at Adios to break out your fly rod and show him a thing or two, right? And I can tell you one thing right now, that has been the most meaningful experience for him.
Oh.
And he talks about it all the time, and he's a professional guide down there in Everglades City, and you've been a true inspiration for setting forth some of the foundation that he moves forward on.
That's very kind. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that speaks, the fact that you took your time out and did that with him, I think it speaks a lot to who Andy Mill really is. You really are a kind soul. Even though you're competitive and and everything like that, you do got a kind heart.
I can get cranky, but it takes a lot to get me cranky anymore because now I'm old and slow. I got cranky the other day, but it's all good. I've been waiting 15 years to yell at this guy. Look, what's the most important thing we can represent in our lives?
Oh,
kindness.
Yeah. Love.
Humility.
Appreciation. Yeah.
Right. So I have a fly rod in my locker because a lot of people come through there that start talking about fly fishing. I really want to be a fly caster. I really want to fish with a fly rod. I really don't. I can cast a little bit, but I don't have it. I said, I can help you. I go grab my rod out of my locker and we go to the putting green because usually there's no one there.
Right.
And we just do fly casting lessons right there.
That's great.
And right away, they walk away knowing what the principles are of throwing a fly line with a rod.
Right.
And they start to get it, and I show them the principles. Here are some things to look for when you're doing something poorly so you can self-correct when you go to practice. And then we leave as best friends.
It's got to be amazing to be able to be shown a thing or two on fly rod from one of the greatest that's ever done it.
Well, two things. You have to like people, which I do. You know, not a lot of people like in South Florida driving down I-95, but for the most part, I love people, and especially people who love to fish, and you know, I love to teach. So that's easy. It's easy for me.
Yeah, you grew up in Colorado originally, right? Did you fish at an early age?
Yeah, you know, here's a very interesting thing that happened as far as being as a small world. Ernie Schwiebert, the great Ernie Schwiebert, he wrote the book Nymphs, Matching the Hatch, an iconic freshwater fisherman. He was giving a clinic in Aspen for the country store when I was about 12 years old. I was riding my bike to baseball practice, and I saw this fly line going back and forth. And I didn't know it was a fly line, I just saw the string. So I rode my bike over there, and he was teaching a bunch of locals how to fly cast. And so I stopped. He taught me how to fly cast. We're going to jump forward. Another friend, Chuck Fothergill in Aspen, a great, famous guy, nymph fisherman. He taught me how to tie flies. But 10 years later, Ernie was sleeping on my couch in Aspen, and we were fishing the frying pan. And Ernie would tie flies on the hood of my Vega, weigh them out, and I'm fishing these little midges that Ernie had just tied. And then we went to Alaska together to fish, and then you jump a long ways down the road. I'm a trustee with the IGFA. I was one of the people there. I was in the MC when he was inducted into the IGFA Fishing Hall of Fame.
Oh, that's phenomenal. Full circle.
Full circle.
Wow.
Right?
That's great. Wow, that's a great story.
So I grew up fly fishing when I was 12 years old. So I fly fished all summer. And I trained in Europe in the fall and trained in South America in the summer and raced throughout Europe. But I always traveled in the fall with a fly rod. So if we were training in Hintertux, Austria, all mountains have streams running off of them. I'd go wherever I travel, I'd have fly rod. I'd go to the river when I wasn't training. So fishing has been as embedded into my core as skiing was. But skiing only lasted for so long. I'll ski for the rest of my life, but not like I fish because you run out of body. And I skied at 80 miles an hour for a living.
Right.
You know, I'm closing in on 72. For me, skiing is a little bit boring now after all these years.
That must have been an insane feeling going that fast, though.
But look, fishing will never be boring because there's so many different kinds of fish, so many different oceans and rivers and forms of fishing that I will, for the rest of my life, be chasing a fish somewhere, somehow.
People ask me that all the time about painting fish. Like, you ever get sick of it? I'm like, no.
Yeah.
There's no limit to it. You know, it never ends. And I always say that there's going to be an unfinished canvas when I'm on my deathbed of one that I was in the middle of that I just didn't finish.
Born to paint.
100%.
Bruce Springsteen was born to run. Dennis is born to paint.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what? You have a great passion.
100%,
You know, it gets you in the water and it transfers to a canvas. What a perfect thing for you. What a great connection.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be said for you because it seems like everything that you've ever done, you've, speaking of passion, had to be the best at it, or you've at least just dedicated yourself to do it at its highest level, right? Like,
here's the deal. If you like something, why not try to be really good at it?
Yeah.
And that is always a lot of times dependent upon how much time you have to do it, to practice it, to be on the ocean, be on the water. But I really didn't know what winning really, the nuances of winning until my last year as a ski racer. And it's kind of a long story, but I finally learned how to win, even though I was the national champion or the #1 American downhill for 9 years. And when you ski in the Olympics, only 4 Americans get a ski for the United States in that event. So I was the top 4 in these 76 Olympics and 1980 Olympics. I got 6th in 76. I was a good skier, but I was not a great skier.
Really?
Great skiers win the Olympics.
Okay.
Right?
Uh-huh.
I never won the Olympics. As a fisherman, I was a good fisherman, but I was not a great fisherman until I got with somebody like a Harry Spear, who was my mentor. The very last year of my ski career, I got with an Austrian coach. He took me to Europe, he changed my technique, I trained with the Austrians, and he showed me how much faster I could ski if I did it differently. And if I did it differently, he showed me by training with the Austrians, I could beat the best in the world. So that year, right away, I got 4th in Garmisch. I had the fastest run in St. Moritz and all the train runs. My ski fell off. I fell in the race, but unfortunately, I broke my neck and my back in Wengen. But I had gotten over the hump of placing in the top 10 to finally getting up on the podium. But I didn't quite get there because I got hurt. But I knew I was going to win, even though I didn't. I knew I had these guys. I knew I had their number. I knew I had my number. Understanding how to win really is understanding what the nuances are and being able to polish those nuances, but also to have that in your heart and in your head that you don't want to just do well. You don't want to just be in the game. You want to win. And when I started fishing with Harry Spear, for 7 years, 40 to 50 days a year, he taught me these nuances of saltwater fly fishing, how to catch tarpon, bonefish, permit. And I didn't know what the terms were. I didn't know what a gold cup was until he finally mentioned something to his wife. We caught 5 fish over 100-pound fish one day. Kimberly, his wife, said, "What kind of day do you boys have?" And Harry said, "We had a gold cup day." I said, "What's that mean?" He said, "Well, the best, most prestigious tarpon tournament in the world is called the Gold Cup." He told me about it. And then I started thinking in my mind every day, I'd hear what they caught. And then we got in, he basically groomed me to fish. And we got 2nd in our first bonefish tournament, won the fall fly in 96. And then I got, I think, 4th in the Gold Cup. But I realized that I could win these things. And my mind was, I don't hope I win. My mindset was, I am not going to allow myself to lose. But to be able to get to that position to say that, you just can't start doing something and saying, I'm not going to allow myself to be second best. You're not qualified to say that because you haven't done the work. You haven't refined all those gazillion million pieces that build the whole of what your abilities are.
I think a lot of that speaks to, you and I were discussing with Al Barnes, the advice that he gave me when I was very young. I was like 17, 18 years old. And I asked him, I said, "You got any tips for me?" And he said, "Yeah, get a job." Right? And I think he had the foresight because he was an older guy at that point, even then. And I think he had the foresight to explain to me the value of mentorship and the value of having people guide you in your way. And I always say, the difference between good and bad is very little. It doesn't take much to be good at something. I think you just need to do it a lot and just want to do it and have fun. But the difference between good and great is vast.
Oh, it's really big.
You got to put in so much work to go from good to great. And you got to be dedicated. You have to give your life to it.
Look, I was more dedicated as a fisherman than I was as a skier. Because in my 20s, I skied in the first Olympics. I skied in Innsbruck, Austria in 76 when I was 23. I was too young to be dedicated and and refined. I didn't know anything about that. I was into the whole package, like chasing chicks and being cool and having long hair, and having a little bit of fame. I didn't have that closed-minded, frame of mind and attitude. I didn't lose any sleep at night, or not much,
Right.
in trying to win, because I didn't know. I just kept thinking, I just keep going forward. I'm going to win one day. It'll come. It'll come. But I wasn't chasing it.
Like it was just part of the process.
It was part of the process. I didn't have great coaches, but I didn't know that. You only know that later. I didn't have the best equipment. I didn't know that. You know that later. And that's what that foundation built for you.
Right.
And that's what I needed for me. Now, when I became a fisherman, my foundation for being a great fisherman was built as an Olympic skier, but not until my last year. So when I got into the tournament arena, I was built to win naturally from my mindset from being a skier.
There's moments that I have even still, like even with the wall I showed you. I drew that whole thing out, right? And I showed up the next morning ready to paint. And I was staring at the actual drawing. And this is a 2-story wall. I didn't like it. And I paced back and forth, and I said to myself, well, is it good enough? I mean, should I just get started? It's a job.
Can I just do it?
Can I just knock this one out?
It'll look good for the average
Right.
guy. He doesn't know the difference. Yeah.
But I ended up erasing the whole thing and redrawing it.
Well, you know what? That is a testament to your will to win.
That's it.
It's your testament to not sacrificing, because you put your name and you stamp your name on something that's mediocre. You will, for the rest of your life, cringe.
100%. You can look back on it. You can remember everything that it took to get there.
And in a year, you're going to look back at that wall that all these people have driven by, and you're going to go, I got to fix it. At some point, you got to fix it. Because you'll never be, you can't live in fear of what you once did or how you were. You don't want to be remembered by a car wreck that you had a number of years ago. You can change at any point in your life if you're willing to change, like an alcoholic or a drug addict or whomever it might be. And fishing has saved a lot of lives that you've heard in our podcast. But as far as being an expert and a winner, that's the difference between being an average guy that's going to sell some work or a great painter that everybody's going to aspire to. Other artists are going to go, wow, look at that piece, And you know that in your heart. But that foundation you went through, you can't get to the top unless you really step on every step on the way up.
Yeah. It really is true. I mean, there's a fire that's got to be in your belly, I think, to get there.
Yeah.
And it's really, and it's tough to pinpoint exactly where that comes from. But at the end of the day, I mean, is it a matter of want or need? And it might be both. But
I don't, I wouldn't label it.
Okay.
It's not fair. It's not fair to the fire or yourself. Do I want this or do I need it? All you know is that you can't live without it.
It's there.
In my perspective.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, you have done so much in your life, right? And we talked about the resume, and it's true. Right? You have accomplished so many things, right? With the skiing, with the fishing. I mean, 5 Gold Cups?
Yeah, I've won,
Triple Crown winner?
Yeah, I've won more tournaments than anyone. I've won 12 tarpon tournaments. I was the first to win a bonefish permit in tarpon tournament.
Right.
There's only 3 of us.
Right.
But yeah, I've done a lot in fishing for sure.
You've done a lot of you wrote your book. You've accomplished great things in this game. You've been married to some pretty incredible women.
Yeah,
right.
3 of them.
Right. What do you think is your crowning achievement?
I think the most important work I've done, putting aside things that I've won or being inducted into Hall of Fames. I'm in a number of them. It's probably the Millhouse podcast because it's a very selfless thing.
Right.
And you know this. We are drawing out information, stories that really history deserves telling.
Right.
And originally, Nikki was the visionary of our podcast, but we started focusing on the older guys that were going to pass. And we were always talking about, man, where's that story going to go unless we can get it and put it on YouTube so the rest of the world can hear how Del Brown and Steve Huff figured out what that click was. What was the switch that had to flip before they could successfully catch permit consistently? And it was putting weight on the fly. But I'd never heard that. I've known Steve forever.
Yeah.
You know, so small things through podcasts and eventually will expose itself. And for the rest of time, we know how it got there.
You know, I say that about our show too, you know, about the history aspect of it. And I always said, man, imagine if in the 80s they had podcasts, which they didn't really. And you could sit down with like, you know, the Dunaways or something and just hear their story and get that on film. But that's not really around.
Well, here's the great thing about the internet is that magazine articles, books, they all get put away in a drawer somewhere. Some get thrown away. TV shows go away. But on the internet, through the YouTube, you can just queue it up, and for the rest of the time, you're going to hear Flip Pallet talk about, you know, how he did what he did, how he established something that millions of people came flying across the world. I came flying off the top of a mountain, wanting to be in Flip Pallet's boat. I wanted to be with this guy. He brought me to the water, and I drank it.
Yeah, the Walker's K days, especially the Chronicles. I mean, that was
every
just
Saturday
magic.
Morning.
That was just magic. That show.
Yeah. So here's a story that's kind of interesting. I told it one other time, and I'll make it quick. Jump ahead. I saw a tarpon bite my fly with John Barrett on this show, Fly Fishing the World, and I saw this fish. My God, this mouth to eat my fly. I thought, I almost had a heart attack. And I thought, wow, I got to do that again. Go fishing, win tournaments, meet everybody. I write a book, and now I'm doing a seminar at the IGFA, and in the audience is Lefty Cray, Flip Pallet, and Stu Abt. And Lefty comes up and says, that's the most amazing presentation I've ever seen. And then we go next door, and I'm signing my book, A Passion for Tarpon, and here you have Chico Fernandez, Lefty Cray, Flip Pallet, and Stu Abt. I look around and I go, God damn, only in America. Holy cow, look at me now.
Yeah. Oh, Chico. I did a podcast with Chico recently. He's just a sweetheart of a guy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He's awesome.
Yeah. Him and his jazz stories especially. Yeah. What is it about tarpon for you that just puts the Silver King on a level above?
A lot of people talk about the jumping, the size, how they like to bite flies. And the game is changing now with the worm flies because that's a real technical game where you cast the fly right here and you start bringing the fly at a certain speed and you intercept the fish and he bites it. It's almost like a reactionary bite. The thing I loved about tarpon the most was that with the old feathered flies, you could talk to a tarpon with a feather. Yeah, you put it out there. Let's just say he's sliding or he's laid up. You put it out there and the fish is kind of sliding, and I just slide the fly, allow the fish to come to the fly, close the gap without stopping the fly. And then when he gets to a certain distance, you tap, bump, 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 bump. It's like a dance. You go bump and the fish goes. And he goes, oh, you like that? How about this? Bump, bump, or maybe a little slip here. I love the ability to communicate with a fish with a feather because that's what you have to do to become a great tarpon fisherman. You have to understand and see what that fish is doing and what he wants next. What do I need to do to make him bite my bug? And then you force feed him. You can't do that very well with many other fish. You know, you can bump, bring the jack out of a permit, bonefish, he sees it the way, like Bonefish don't necessarily like to see flies jumping unless you're fishing for smaller fish. Bigger fish like a crab on the bottom sliding, what I noticed. But a tarpon, you can have this interaction that might last 20 or 30 feet, where you pull a fish from 70 feet out there and you're bumping and sliding, bump, bump, slide, slide. Here you can bump, bump, slide it. He's still right here, you know, bump, bump. And then you do something and it goes, smashes it. That's what I love
That's
about
it for you.
That's what I love about tarpon fish. Yeah, the bite is insane.
Right.
The jumps are great. They jump like like a Steinway falling out of the sky, which is in the words of Tom McGuane, you know. All that is great. A lot of people don't like pulling on big fish. I like fighting fish. I like fighting these big things, you know. So I love all the aspects of tarpon fishing, but I really love feeding those fish.
Yeah. That's how I feel about a bonefish bite too. When it's just with just all that stillness and all that quiet on the flats, and then the second it hooks in, and then just rip.
Yeah, you like that the sound of that fly line zipping across the surface. Yeah.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
To me, that's the ultimate for me. Like,
but I think if I had one fish to catch, one last fish, and that's all I have, it would probably be fishing alone over, wading on white sand somewhere on the planet, and it's just a big old 14-pound bonefish tailing.
Yep.
Or a big permit tailing.
That's my absolute favorite.
Yeah, there's only you and the sea breeze and the beautiful sky and the animal. It's the most organic way to catch a fish.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I want to rewind a little bit.
Sure.
Right? When you got injured as a skier, was it back in the early 80s, right?
I got hurt badly in 81.
You got hurt really bad.
Yeah, it ended my ski career.
I mean, that had to have been a really tough, challenging time in your life. That chapter just closed.
It actually wasn't that hard. Because,
it wasn't? Okay.
Because what happened was, it was like something died. And I couldn't go back to it.
Right.
So my ski career, my athletic career, I've already had like 8, 9 knee operations, 10 broken arms and legs, and God, I was beat up and I broke my neck. This particular fall, I went into a fence head first. I broke my neck, my back, my right leg, and all the ligaments in my right knee.
Oh, my God.
By that time, I still wanted to go hard, but my body, I just didn't have anything left. I didn't have anything left to keep pushing with. And so that was easy. But the hard part was, okay, what am I going to do now for the rest of my life? Knowing that my athletic career was over and I didn't want to work for anybody.
Right.
And I had no education. I have no foundation to go on my own and start a business. So what I did, I thought, well, the only way I can do this, some people know who I am, so let's try the exposure route. So I started what they called back then as I barter syndicated a TV show, kind of like a podcast. So what I did, I got, there were a bunch of small TV stations all over the country popping up in ski areas. So I thought, I'll start a Ski with Andy Mill program, and I'll own the opening and closing billboard. And inside that 5 minutes, I'll give the station a 30-second commercial, and I'll keep the other 30-second commercials. So what they have, free of charge, is a 5-minute tip that will cover the whole sport of skiing. And I would give them 20 new tips every year. Like simple tips sometimes, like how to walk up and down staircases with ski boots on, how to carry skis, how to keep your feet warm. All the way to how do you powder ski? How do you ski in the trees? How do you ski bumps? All that. So it was actually good for both parties. They would air my show from start to finish. And it was free. All they had to do is give me a block of time. And they had a 30-second commercial to sell. So right away they could make money, and they didn't have to worry about spending any money to produce this kind of stuff. We were in 85 ski areas for 20 years. And now I could go to all my sponsors So I went to the car sponsors that were sponsoring the U.S. ski team. Subaru was a sponsor. Rolex was a sponsor. And then I had, on my body, I had a $30,000 contract with Ray-Ban. I had a $75,000 contract with Friel. I had a $30,000 contract with my skis. Now, all of a sudden, I was making $400,000 a year, spending $25,000 on the production cost. And I had that for 20 years.
Wow.
I invented the best job I'd ever had.
Sure did.
By the seat of my pants.
See, look at that. Like this, and this is what amazes me about you, right? I'm just in awe.
No, I'm afraid. I really am.
Andy, I'm just in awe.
Thank you.
No, really, seriously. I mean, I'm just in awe because whatever you've done in your life, you've done it. You've been the best.
I've gotten very lucky. It takes good friends.
Luck is preparation meets opportunity.
Yeah,
though,
sure.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, the reason I wanted to go back and ask you, let me go back and ask you that, right, is because I'm just always so incredibly amazed when you meet a guy like you and you try to get beneath the layers to figure out who they are and what they're built of and what they're made of, and to really get a good understanding as to when you got injured, how you were able to transform yourself and what drove you to be like not denied on any part of your life to say, no, this is going to happen. This is going to happen my way. This is going to happen the best way. Right. And that's really the juice that I'm after.
Well, and look, obviously it takes a lot of luck and friends really help along the way. But one of the things that was very interesting with this, so after I got hurt, I started ski with Andy Mill. But I also got hired by the Aspen Skiing Company, and I was the director of skiing for Ajax Mountain for 7 years. I also got a job with the network, so I was a broadcaster for the Olympics for CBS in 1992 and 1994. And I covered World Cup skiing for 20 years as an announcer. But my excitement level was flatline. I made a lot of money. But I was going through the motions. It was not that exciting. A lot of people might say, that would have probably been crazy exciting, being an announcer in the Olympics and doing World Cup coverage and being the director of skiing, all blah, blah, blah. No, because once I got hurt, chasing a victory ended. Yeah, there was victory in getting hired to do the Olympics. There was victory in getting hired to be the director of skiing. But I wasn't out chasing dreams. Those weren't big dreams for me. Those were just things I did to try to make a living.
Practical.
And luckily I got hired and I liked people and it worked, right?
Right.
But what really changed...
More of a practical reality, right?
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I love doing it. Don't get me wrong. But
if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Papa, let's go. But here's the deal. There was a big miss.
Yeah.
I found that in my life, if I'm not chasing something in one way or the other, there's a big miss. The excitement level for me goes over the top when I have a big bull elk 20 yards away and I have a sharp arrow and it's, right. I got an arrow, my arrow's on my string and here comes that bull elk. Like in September, here's the bull elk naked I just killed.
Yeah, there you go.
And chasing dreams.
Exactly. Yeah, that's good timing right there.
Yeah. Thank you. So, woo, that's that good.
Sure is.
Love that.
That's that limited, the 22.
It's the best. Edition. It's the best. So, there's two big moments, major moments in my working career that took place. One was getting hurt, losing my athletic career. The second one, well down the line, 20 years later, after doing all the broadcast stuff, I did some specials for the Outdoor Life Network. I was a host on some of their shows, and they liked my work, and they said, we really need a fishing show because it was a new network. And they wanted to do outdoor programming. And they were going to spend a lot of money on one show to show, their advertisers what kind of production they can do with, their programming. So they hired me. They asked me if I'd host a fishing show. I said, I have no time. I said, but I'll tell you what, you match all the money I make as a skier across the board, all of it. And I was making a lot of money by that time. You match that, and at the time it was about $400,000 to $500,000 a year. This is a long time ago. You match that and give me a 5-year contract, I will leave skiing in its entirety. I will become your guy. So they said, okay. So then I started the TV show, Sportsman's Journal with Andy Mill. And we did 91 TV shows from around the world over the next 9 years. Now I was back in the game.
Back in the game.
Catching a marlin on a fly rod, sailfishing in Costa Rica, fishing the Seychelles, the east side of Africa. I did a TV show with President Bush in the Arctic Circle. Now I was back on that adventure train again.
Hell yeah, you were.
So again, I got back to my other thing that I grew up with, fishing. And for 9 years, we went and chased TV shows.
That's exactly how I felt when I quit my day job and I left the music industry.
Exactly right.
That's it. And then everyone responded to me leaving, and it was great, and things just took off from there. I hear you on that feeling.
Here's something about this that I like to bring up. How often do we have a chance to really think clearly in our lives? We're busy. Yeah. Everyone's busy. The phone is on fire. The kids are on fire.
Clarity is the struggle, right?
You can't hear. You can't hear your heart. You can't hear, fuck, I hate this. What can I do? How can I change it? But I always found that when I'm alone on a river, or if I go fishing alone, fishing is exciting. Your mind is always racing and moving for fishing and this and that. But at some point when you're quiet, silence has a chance to be listened to. Silence has a chance to be heard. And when you hear silence, there's something else you hear. All of a sudden you start going internally instead of looking out here all the time. All the big changes I've made in my life, it's always been when I'm alone. And fishing provides, that opportunity, especially when I'm trout fishing. And that's why I like fishing alone, because when you're on a boat, there's all kinds of stuff going on. You have somebody else talking, cigars, have a beer, catch a fish, it's busy. It's busy.
We went through a transformation too with our business, the studio business, right? And where we started expanding, and I started hiring all these employees, and we started doing all this stuff. And the more we grew in that direction, the less of an artist I became. And I didn't like it. I didn't like what my soul was saying. And that's why we made the recent changes that we've made.
You saw the truth.
Yeah, exactly. I saw the truth. I saw the truth about myself.
So you always think, I'm an artist. I got to have a gallery.
Right.
So then you get the gallery and you go, whew, maybe I'm not ready for that yet.
Well, or maybe I don't want it.
Right. Well,
the health issues, they've played a factor, but it's not like that was the deciding factor. I could have kept it.
Yeah, you could have forced it.
Yeah.
And you're stuck, and then you're a prisoner of your gallery.
I imagine myself as an old man sitting in that same gallery one day going, where the hell did my life go?
Well, look,
because it didn't have adventure on it.
Right. Well, good for you.
There's something that I talk about a lot, and we've evolved this conversation on the show over time. And, we're always talking about connected by water and, what is that invisible power that you have, between each other when you go fishing together, you hunt together, or whatever the case may be. We've come to the conclusion that it's a man's primal connection, right? What we were designed to do as human beings over time. And there's a deeper meaning in the primal instinct of it. And when you share that moment with others, you create an imperishable bond. It's different than say, hey, yeah, we hung out at that wedding one time years ago. We had a great night. It's like, what's different than, well, we went on a hunt, or we fished, and we caught this great fish together. You don't forget that ever. That sticks with you forever. I want to get your take on that.
It's a lot harder to be in the outdoors and be successful in the outdoors than it is to drink a bottle of vodka.
Yeah.
You remember those times, those great times for sure, with those special people where you have a chance to share, a period of time that evening. But the most riveting times is when you really, really suffer to win. Catching a big fish that you're targeting, you're winning. You understand the dynamics, where that fish is, where the current line is, where that weed line is, where that basin is, where these fish, lay up on a high tide. And it takes for years to develop a cast and design a fly to go in there and catch that fish. You've earned that. And not only that, that leads you to the next phase, that next step. And in the outdoors, it's like hunting with Mickey all these years. When we're in the woods, we just finished hunting Colorado and Montana. When you're walking off the top of the mountain at midnight with a big old elk rack on your back, after hunting for, say, 12 days, sleeping on the ground, eating freeze-dried food, man, you're screaming at the stars all the way off that mountain, man. There's no way you could forget that.
Yeah, that's got to be.
And when you do it with a buddy that has suffered as much as you have, oh my God, it's like you'll never lose those kind of friends.
That's got to be the deepest connection of it all, I think.
The action that I've done with my son?
The fact that you did it with your son is on another level, I think.
For sure.
But I just think just the act or the process of the entire moment, of being in that primal setting, like you're removing yourself from today's modern world.
And
bringing yourself back in that primal moment and achieving what you've achieved.
No, it's insane, because I say insane because it's almost unreasonable to the normal mindset, what has to be done.
Right.
For years, I'd drive down the road in my truck with a mouth reed. Let's see if I have one here. And so you're trying to like figure out, this might not be a very good one, but you're trying to figure out, how do I make the sound of a cow in estrus, like begging that bull to come to me,
right?
Just like that tarpon, come eat my feather, I don't know if this will work. It's a bad read. I can't do it with that one. But anyway, let's just say, go back to the story. You've listened to tapes, you've watched the videos on YouTube, and you hear what that bull, what he sounds like, what's that cow elk sound like, and you get these reads and you start working with them and understanding. You're going, yeah, yeah, yeah. And at first you don't know how to beg. You just know how to make a sound, right? So you go in the woods and you make the sound, and the animals split. They just take off. Sounds like an avalanche of meat.
Oh my God! It reminds me of the first time I casted at a school of bonefish. Right in the middle of them.
They scatter.
My guide was like, "No, what are you doing?
What are you doing?" So you go through that process. Meanwhile, you just spent 4 hours hiking to the top of this mountain from 4 a.m. to get in position to kill an elk. But that goes on and on and on. And then finally you make that sound. Yeah. And the bull spins and looks at it. Why? Bugles at you, and you go, oh, holy cow. Now you got the connection. Then a little bit further, you go down the line, you harvest the animal and you eat these steak and you go, the best tasting steak
Sure.
you've ever eaten because you were the one that went up there, found him, talked to him, brought him in, killed him, hauled him off the mountain on your back.
Yeah.
That's some real hard-earned steak right there.
That sure is.
You don't just go buy that at the store.
No.
But so the experiences are, those are the ones that I've grown most from.
Mhm.
Mostly, I should say. I've mostly grown from doing these type of things, learning how to tarpon fish with Harry Spear and then passing that on to Nikki. But my greatest joy is now watching him. He's so good. Now in the podcast, initially he was like a deer in the headlights, but now he can do the whole thing on his own. He's smart. He's articulate. He adapts. He's a predator.
Yeah.
You talk about somebody who wants to win. Oh my God, this guy will never. There's no let up. And he was born with it. When he was playing tennis, he did a tennis ball over the net 100 times to win 1 point. Always calculating, never going for that big shot, never swinging out of his comfort zone. And he's learned how to adapt. He's learned how to refine everything he does. Tarpon fishing, one of the best in the game. I'll put him up against anybody. Bow hunting, crazy. But winning and doing these things, especially the hard things, that's where you bond.
Yeah, that is where you bond. And it's also inspiring to see your kids compete. Like as a father myself, I'm starting to see my son's very young. He's starting to play hockey, right? And we had a tough time with him in the beginning because he was experiencing a lot of this social anxiety. He didn't want to do anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of resigned myself to be like, okay, I'm just not going to have a kid that's going to want to compete athletically. It's fine. He's great at other things too, But all of a sudden he wants to play hockey, and we put him in the hockey, and he just broke out of his shell. And we're kind of in the middle of it now, and it's been so inspiring for me to watch, and it's really, you just, the feeling that you get from seeing your kid compete is just, it's on another level.
It is. Well, here's something that's very interesting that I experienced. I have 3 boys. So I love that line, you bring them to the water, and sometimes they don't drink. Lead a horse to water. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. When they finally drink the water and all of a sudden they love the things that you like to do, it's like, what a blessing. What a blessing. But your kids will never, ever be close to you if you try to force them to do something they don't want to do. Let's do something else. Okay. Instead of skiing, I want to snowboard. Great. But be the best. Boom, they're great. Skateboard. Boom, they're great. Let them shine in their own little elements,
Right.
And I hear other people kind of like forcing kids to do things that they might not really want to do. But let's try everything. At some point, they're going to find something they like, and then just give them all the backing they can get.
I'm kind of feeling that way with him and fishing, because he liked it when he was really, really young, and now he doesn't like it anymore. And I talked to Rufus about this too, and he experienced the same thing with Marlin. And Marlin came around, and he was like, "Oh, okay, son, we'll do whatever you want.
Right.
Let's all buy you this fly reel, whatever." And right now, I'm just, if my son never wants to be a fisherman, I'll accept that. But I'm just being patient with him now. I'm not forcing him.
Yeah, they'll find something.
Yeah.
Like all my kids race motorcycles. They all love racing motorcycles, so they'll find something. And Nicky, one time, I knew that Nicky got it. He loved it. He loved to fish. He loved to play with the mullet bait well. He loved the boat. Whenever I'd go to a tournament, he's riding on my shoulders when he was like 7, 8 years old. Hanging onto his ankles forever.
Right.
And he'd hang onto my hair. He was my best pal from a very young age. And then once we started fishing and he really liked it, I was starting to be a little bit demanding with him in the fishing. And he kept making the same mistake over and over and over and over and over. I said, "Nicky, what the fuck, okay? I told you this 10 times. Don't do that." And what he was doing, his false cast was perfect, right? Cast, good double haul, cast, and then we'd go to fish into the wind. He'd drop his rod like everybody does. Big open loop, and the fly goes over there, So Nick, you got to stop your rod. When you come forward, you got to stop that rod and then just drop it to feed the fish.
Let
Then you
it.
can start stripping.
Yeah.
You got to stop it so the loop stays tight to the very end. And he says, "Why do you have to be so mean?" Yeah. I said, "You want to learn fast or you want to learn slow?"
Right.
And so we had this fish coming one day. So I'm pulling the skiff. We always fish together. I got a fish coming at the 2 o'clock position. I said, "Nicky, here comes the tarpon. You see him out there about 80 feet? He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Spin the boat." I go, "No, that's a backhand fish, bro. Come on, you got this." Just, he's a great backhand caster. He's getting mad. "Spin the boat, spin the boat." And so then I push my push pull in and just shoved the back end out from the just spun it out. He just went flying off the bow of the boat. I said, "Bro, I told you it was a backhand cast." About an hour later, I'm having lunch. I light up a brand new Cuban cigar. I take one step to get up on the pulling platform. I slip and I go head first out of the boat.
Oh, come on.
He goes, I could tell that karma thing, Dad. That karma.
Wow. Cheers to that.
Yeah, here's the karma, man. But you can't do that until they're ready to be pushed.
Yeah. I'm just being patient right now, but I like what he's shown me in hockey. Gives me hope.
Yeah.
It gives me hope. So, but you love your kids. Yeah, you love your kids. I want to bring up a topic with you that may or may not be controversial, right? So, and I don't really talk politics on the show, right? I try to stay away from it, very far away from it, as much as possible. But there's one thing that we're voting on the amendments right now. I want to kind of get your take on it. Or if you don't want to discuss it, I completely understand. With the right to hunt and fish, with Bonefish Tarpon and Trust are behind this, and CCA, and a lot of great organizations. Do you feel that there's been some controversy back and forth on whether or not this should be voted yes or no?
From the outdoorsman point of view?
From the outdoorsman point of view.
How would the outdoorsman deny that?
Right.
Because conservation is really based on hunting and fishing. Yeah, we sell these tags. Certain herds, they get overpopulated. They have to cull the herd. Like certain big deer herds, you have too many deer, and I mean not male deer, but too many does. Certain situations you have to harvest, and you have to raise money so you can really do the things that you have to do correctly in the world of conservation. I don't understand how an outdoorsman would vote against that.
I'm with you 100%, but there have been some people trying to twist the language of this thing, and I just don't get it. I think personally in my opinion, codifying our rights to hunt and fish in the state constitution, which we currently do not have, I think really is a move for conservation in the future. It really guarantees that the government has to provide healthy lands and waters for us to be able to utilize to be able to be sportsmen. And sportsmen's dollars have historically contributed more to conservation than any other program.
Well, they're like in Colorado, they're trying to vote, they're trying to ban hunting mountain lions. Well, mountain lions, you have to cull them because now there's so many, they're killing all the wildlife. Not the wildlife, a lot of the wildlife, but the livestock.
Right.
So during the spring, when all these animals are calving, a lot of these young elk and deer and farm animals are getting killed. I had a mountain lion in my backyard the other day.
In Colorado?
Yeah, up in Starwood. They're everywhere. And they're making it look like, these guys want to do a trophy hunt and have a mountain lion on their wall. Well, look, I understand certain aspects of hunting that I would never do. I would never track down a mountain lion with a bunch of dogs and shoot it out of a tree.
Right.
That's not my way of hunting. But who am I to say why somebody else shouldn't? The bottom line is these animals are being culled in a very proper way. because they're not going to cull themselves on their own. They're just going to keep mass producing, and then there's going to be a major problem. Then do they let the fish and game harvest them instead of the people?
Yeah, I think that's why it's also important that for this particular issue that we have here in Florida, that they're indicating that the FWC is still going to be the ones that are going to govern all that.
Here's the deal. Why should somebody in Denver, Colorado, that does not understand the dynamics of reintroducing wolves to Colorado, why should they have a vote?
Agreed.
Why? They have no idea about the issues.
Yeah, having this get to the ballot is probably worst case scenario.
The fish and game who understand the dynamics much better as to why or why not, they should dictate whether or not we do that. Because the wolves decimate the elk herds in Wyoming and Idaho.
Yeah.
They run in packs. They almost kill as for a sport. Wolves will get to Colorado. They were already in Colorado. But why do we introduce more of them? I mean, these type of things are beyond my imagination. Why a voter that has no idea about the balance or imbalance of what they're voting on should have a say.
Yeah. I think that I agree with you. I really believe that we should have had a right to hunt and fish codified in our state constitution already. But unfortunately, we don't. It's just a statute, right? So, but we've seen in Texas and North Carolina, who recently just passed this, they're having great success. Even in the fact that the CCA in North Carolina, they recently just put a lawsuit against the state of North Carolina because they're not holding up their side of the bargain now. And they were successful in that. And that's the plan in action right there. There are other states like Oregon a year ago tried to get it on the ballot. They didn't have enough signatures, thank God. They tried to get it on the ballot to outlaw hunting altogether. And thank God that didn't make it to the ballot.
Yeah, it's like who is pushing this? They're basically a lot of people don't like hunting. Let's just face it.
I think that's what it comes to.
A lot of people just don't like the idea that somebody's out there killing Bambi.
Right.
So
that's what it comes down to, Andy.
That's all it's coming down to.
Yeah.
But they don't understand the dynamics of true conservation in the outdoors.
Yeah, I agree. So I think it's important to vote yes on too, but and make sure that we have a right in this state.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, the Miccosukee tribe, the Seminole tribe, they're all behind this.
Absolutely. It's imperative.
Yeah, it's imperative. It's imperative. Thank you for talking on that.
For sure.
Let's talk conservation, right? If we can, give me your take. I mean, it's a very wide conversation, right? But I just want to give me your take, because I want to get a soundbite from you on why it's important. I want future generations to hear the voice of Andy Mill and to tell them why it's important to basically have hunters and fishermen be the ones that are stewards of the land, that are basically the ones that want to just lead the charge in conservation.
Well, I think when we're talking conservation, for the most part, where we are here in South Florida, we think of Lake Okeechobee,
right,
and the water that they dump into both sides of the ocean, not allowing it to filter, and we unfortunately have our hands tied because a lot of the land is owned by people who are growing, have farms. Animals discharge with sugar too, the nutrients. It's like trying to push a boulder over Mount Everest. It's a boulder that's almost unpushable, but what are the repercussions? We have bad water, we have red tide, we have all kinds of issues. We have fish kill. But here's my question. Is it really possible to win this game? We know it's important to fight. We have to do everything we can. That's why Captains for Clean Water is doing an incredible job. Everybody's got their foot in that game, trying to fight this nonsense that continues. And a lot of people that don't live on these rivers don't see the real impact of what we're talking about. They don't see the algae blooms. They don't see, what everybody else sees in that region.
It's such a tough, convoluted topic because there is no simple answer, right? Because of the way a lot of things have been structured with, the lake is, the way the rivers are designed, the way the reservoirs are, and all the different red tape that everyone has had to go through.
Sure.
For that, it's very tough. I think really that everyone's got this mindset that there's a finish line, and I don't think conservation has a finish line.
Oh, there's no way.
We're not gonna pass. It's not like the Olympic skier that you get to the end and you've won.
Look,
I don't think that moment's ever going to happen.
Well, here's
But you got to keep moving forward.
Here's what I feel and here's the problem. Why that finish line keeps moving is because the problems get bigger and bigger every year.
Mm-hmm.
We have more and more people moving into the state.
That to me is the biggest problem.
And that's the more and more
The
buildings,
sprawl.
more and more golf courses.
Yep.
Oh, we need our gas green. Let's put more fertilizer on the grass and dump all that crap into our streams and creeks.
Yes.
I'm sorry. We cannot not fight. But unfortunately, all we can do, and I think, is slow the decline.
Yeah.
It's going to keep moving because people are going to keep coming. We only have so much clean water, and it's not being filtered very well.
We weren't designed for this many people in this state.
No.
We just simply weren't.
Yeah. So all you do is you fight the good fight. You believe in it. You keep raising money. You keep speaking out. You join forces to keep pushing. Keep pushing. And hold Tallahassee accountable. And
another thing too. I mean, just for the simple civilian of the state of Florida, if you see trash in the ground and it's not yours, pick it up anyway and throw it away. It could be as simple as that. Just start right there. Don't think that's not my job. That's not my stuff. Not my job. Just walk right by it. You know what I mean? All the time. Like my kids, all the time. We've got them trained to where they're walking up, like going into a shopping center or something, and they see like a plastic bottle on the ground. They pick it up and they throw it away.
Smart.
And I think that a lot of it is because runoff is a big thing.
Oh my God. I was driving down I-95 maybe a year ago and I see this truck over there and they throw this bag of McDonald's crap, the whole bag.
Oh God, that would
right
kill
out
me.
the window.
That would
I
kill me
haven't
to see
seen
that.
that in 20 years.
Oh, that would kill me to see that. I want to ask you a question that I asked Chico.
Yeah.
Right? Because, and I really only asked this or I should rephrase that. I really only want to ask this of the legends that have accomplished all the things and have something to say to the next generation, right? So what do you like that you're seeing from this current generation, and what, if anything, don't you like?
Well, to start with, I'm really thankful and appreciative of you using my name and in the same context with Chico's. Chico he's a giant.
I think he said something similar about you.
Well, coming from him, man, I love those guys. And you see that Hall of Fame nomination letter that Steve Huff wrote, to me. I've gotten to know these guys very well for a very long period of time, and they are the foundation of who and what we are, saltwater fly fishing. It was not started that long ago, but it was Flip, Lefty, Flip, Chico, and a few others before them. But for the most part, these guys really made it popular. They really made it famous. And when we lose these guys, they're irreplaceable.
Right.
And why? As Lefty told me, he said, it's easy to refine something that's already been invented. It's hard to come up with something new. So these guys built that ground floor, and that's why they are the Mount Rushmore of saltwater fly fishing.
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt. New guys they're innovating a lot of new things. They're catching fish with drones. The bass fishermen are catching fish with sonar systems. The offshore world sees the fish, at 900 feet, a quarter of a mile away, they can go get it,
What do you feel about that?
Well,
as someone who explained to me earlier about how you can toy with a tarpon or get to speak to him with a fly, You're talking about guys that are catching fish on sonar.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that. Let me finish this first question
Sure.
here. So the new guys are so creative. They are so smart. They are so good. And it's really important because the game has gotten so hard and so technical. Without their skills, these new young guides, the average guy it's going to be impossible for them to catch a fish in the future. So this new generation has pushed the envelope that much further. They, like in tarpon fishing, they've refined the techniques with palolo worms. The fly lines that Scientific Anglers is building now, clear tip floating lines, that's the next phase. How they catch marlin with sink tips, on their fly lines to get the weight below the marlin so the marlin stays high. These are the type of things that the new generation has really come up with. And that's going to keep getting pushed forward and forward. So the average guy has that kind of technology and information that they can go out and catch fish now. But it's got to start by the young intelligent guys, the Illuminatis, as we call them, that are out there doing great things. Because it all filters down to the common man. I mean, we got to have them. And I love it. I don't think there's anything bad about that until you get to the drones, until you get to the bass world, catching these fish with the sonar stuff, in the offshore world. You got to give the offshore world guys a break because that's so hard. There's so much water. It gives them a chance to be successful. That doesn't bother me so much as some flat skiff with a drone, sitting up over their boat and spotting the tarpon coming in on an edge in tannic water with the drone. Pretty soon these fish have no place to hide. Can you imagine? We're a couple of bass guys hanging out in structure. We're underwater, and all of a sudden, we're living like this because all day long somebody's going to throw a bug at you. There's never a safe place because they can't hide. Dark water, they can't hide. Sonar shows everything.
To me, when you catch an ice fish, right, there is that moment of respect that you have for the fish, right? Like, yeah, you achieved that and you have displayed the dominance over the fish, but you respect that fish. I would think that you have a tougher time truly in your heart respecting that fish if you've caught it simply because of technology.
Well, there's a lot of people that do things that they don't really care how it gets done. They just want to get it done.
Yeah.
They're not romantics.
They're not artists. The art's the same way. I'm always pulling parallels between art and fishing, and I think that's one of them.
Yeah, they're not artists. They're not.
Because you're an artist, Andy.
Romantic. Well, yeah. Well, the way we do things, it is an art form.
The process means something.
Casting a fly line is an art form.
Yeah.
How do I make a tight loop? How do I make an open loop when I need an open? How do I make that fly go around a corner? It's all art for sure.
Yeah.
And you got to have that to do what you want to do, well.
I'm continually drawing parallels between art and fishing because I think fishing is an art form, 100%.
Yeah.
Like without it, if you do the process correctly.
No, I totally agree.
I am going to ask you a question that I ask all the great ones that I have on the show. Everybody has one. What is your one that got away?
I'm thinking about a hot chick right now. I'm not thinking about a fish. I'm thinking about a hot chick. I didn't quite.
We got to cheers that again.
Because I catch all the fish I want to catch.
You got one that got away that you wish you had back.
Well, there is one. It was before I'd ever won the Gold Cup. And this particular year, we got second and we lost by 8 ounces. 5-day tarpon tournament, we lose by 8 ounces. We lost by a half a pound. In the tournament, you get 10 points per pound. We lost by a half a pound, 8 ounces, 5 points. what happened to us was one of the days, I think it was the first day of the Gold Cup, Timmy Hoover and I caught a big fish down in this basin in the Lower Keys. Brought it in, bring the fish to Timmy, he lip gaffs it. And normally when you lip gaff a tarpon back in the day, you would make one move. You lip gaff the fish and slide him right in the boat. Because there you put a strap around him, take photographs, measure him, do all the work. So what happened was he lip gaffed this tarpon, and it was a big one, 120, somewhere around there, over 100. Pulled it up next to the boat and he stopped. The fish shook his head. My fly fell out and he dropped the fish. It swam away with the lip gaff in his mouth.
Come on.
So if we would have caught that fish, we would have gotten 1,200 points, at least 1,000 points. We lost the tournament by 5.
6 Gold Cups.
So I would have won 6 Gold Cups more than anyone. As it is, I'm tied with Hoover with 5.
That's a tough one.
Yeah. So I asked, my ex-wife, Chrissy, said, talking about bad luck, good luck, this, and she goes, when it's all said and done, it all gets washed out in the wash. It all you break even. You can't win every time. You can't win every time.
You don't know, really, though, Andy?
But to win more than anybody else, I'll take that.
I mean, there's only one Andy Mill. You got to take solace in that.
I got 3 ex-wives that say, thank God.
That's hilarious. There's only one Andy Mill, right? And I sat down with Andy Mill today.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity that I'll never forget.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you.
It's the truth. It really is the truth. And you've experienced nothing but kindness to me, and you've shared your stories with us. And just forever thankful for that.
Ah, my pleasure, buddy. Anytime.
Yeah.
For you, John, too, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming. I'm honored to be on your podcast. When anybody calls and asks for something, I am honored that they call. I have great joy in teaching. I have great pride, and I care greatly for passing on invaluable information, because not a lot of people know the real nuances of this stuff. And like Steve Huff never did this type of stuff. He never toured.
Right.
Stu didn't really do a whole lot of it, but some of these guys did. Chico did. He's a giver. He's always been out there, teaching, sharing his knowledge. Flip does that a little bit. Lefty did it forever. A lot of these great people that have a pile of information don't really do a lot of that kind of stuff. Now it's easy. They do Instagram stuff, Instagram videos. Like we did an interview with Kelly Gallup. He does a lot on Instagram. They all post a lot.
Right.
And Kelly used to travel a lot. But when you go to the trade shows, there's not a lot of these old guys, really like stars, that are there much anymore. And that's why we were talking the other day, that there's not a lot of these guys that are going to be replaced. So I take pride when you put my name up next to like a Chico Fernandez. I take pride when these guys know that, I've done a lot of stuff, and they have my back,
right?
And so therefore, I feel obligated to share. I feel obligated, but also not only obligated, I'd love to share. As part of what I'm supposed to do now. I'm not in the game anymore. My job now is to give back, pay it forward, and that's what I do.
I love that so much. As a person who is dedicated, listen. So we talk about the fire earlier and all that, and I don't have that need inside of me to win at fishing every time I'm out. I love fishing. I have a passion for it. Like it's my favorite thing, right? But I love everything about it. I love being in the element. I love being with the people on the boat. Because to me, there's so much more involved with fishing than just catching the fish, right? And I know where my strengths lie. I know my strength is greater in painting a fish than it is in catching a fish. And I'm good with that.
Mm-hmm.
right? So when we talk about the fire in the belly and we talk about the need to win and all that, that's what I have for painting fish,
Mm-hmm.
right? And, you know, talking to you, I can relate because I feel that, but for the other thing, you know, but
Mm-hmm.
fishing is a love. for
Sure.
me.
Look, the reason
Just
I
like
want,
jazz is a love for Chico,
yeah,
right?
yeah, for sure. You know, it's like the reason I had to win in fishing, the reason why I was so possessed to win the big ones and win more than anyone is because I didn't do it as a skier.
Right?
This was
I was wondering about that.
this was how I got even. Because just before I was going to win as a skier, I got hurt. But as a fisherman, I could get what I never got as a skier. I could stand on that top platform going, holding that trophy going, I got it. I finally got it. I didn't get that as a skier, but I got it as a fisherman. Hell yeah. Here's to getting it.
Fucking A. I just got underneath Andy Mill. That's great. And that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Because all I could think of was when you told me you got that new coach, you were on your way to doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And you got hurt.
Mm-hmm. But as a fisherman, I got Harry Spear right away.
Right.
I got my coach instantly. Right away, I got my coach. So I was on a path that was going that way when I got with Harry.
Love you, man.
Love you too, buddy.
Your ego is not your amigo. Always do your best, and just remember at the end of the day, just let God do the rest. Do not ever forget that no matter where we are, no matter what we're doing, we're all connected by water.
You get that right.
Andy Mill, thank you, sir.
It's been an honor. Thanks, buddy. There's a little dribble left.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
We're out.